In this video, I will look at the difference between Japanese and English manga volumes, outside of the obvious things like the language being different and the fact that Japanese people know how to read manga. The manga volumes I will compare are standard single volumes, so I'll avoid talking about things like 3-in-1 manga or special releases. One difference that is very easy to notice is the size difference, with Japanese manga volumes often being a fair bit smaller than the English release. The smaller size is likely due to Japan being a commuter society, with the smaller size making manga easier to carry around. While a lot of manga are smaller in Japan, there are also some Japanese manga volumes that are of comparable size to the English releases. The Japanese manga volumes also tend to be thinner than the English manga volumes. Due to the pages being thinner, the pages are easier to see through, and this can be annoying when reading. The pages in the Japanese releases also seem a bit more yellowish in the light, and I would say that they're generally of lower quality. To compare the content inside the manga, I will use Attack on Titan Volume 1 and Naruto Volume 72, which I have both the English and Japanese version of. At first, when looking through Attack on Titan, I found the Japanese version to have more cropped artwork. However, as I went further in, I found that there were also many instances of the English release being more cropped than the Japanese release. So in the case of Attack on Titan, I would say it's hard to determine which is better at giving you more of the artwork. In the case of Naruto, however, this is a lot easier to determine. The Japanese manga volume of Naruto is consistently a lot more cropped than the English release. I found here a lot of cases of the English release showing more of the artwork than the Japanese release, while I found no cases of the Japanese release being less cropped than the English release. A difference I found between the English version of Attack on Titan and Naruto was how they dealt with sound effects. In Attack on Titan, the original Japanese sound effects were left intact, with English sound effects being added on top, while in Naruto, the Japanese sound effects were just replaced with the English sound effects. Another important thing about the content inside the manga is whether or not there is any censorship. From the English manga volumes I've not noticed any obvious censorship. I know that there are some cases out there, like for instance certain English releases of Dragon Balls that are censored, though I think that the content of the manga tends to be left intact for physical manga volumes, and that censorship is rather rare. In Monster Musume, for instance, all the nudity is left intact, and one thing that I found kind of surprising is that in the English release of Nisekoi, they kept a reference and a promotion for Nisekoi Yomeri, which is a spin-off visual novel only released in Japan in Japanese, with there being no official English release of it. Now I'm done talking about the inside of the manga, and I will now focus on the outside. For single volume manga, the Japanese and English release seem to pretty much always use the same artwork on the cover. There are, however, some differences. The way the artwork is cropped can be different, like for instance the Japanese release of Attack on Titan showing more of the lower and left part of the cover illustration, while the English release shows more on the right side and more open space on the top. For both Attack on Titan Volume 1 and Naruto Volume 72, the Japanese edition has a stronger color on the cover than their English counterpart. The layout of the text as well as the spines are also different, and there's a big difference in how information is displayed on the back of the manga. The most interesting difference between the Japanese and English cover, in my opinion, is the fact that the cover for the English volumes are part of the book, while it is a dust jacket for the Japanese volumes. Under this dust jacket, you can find things not found in the English release. In a lot of cases, this isn't that interesting. For instance, most Shonen Jump titles seem to just have the cover art with a muted color underneath. There are, however, some manga that are a bit more interesting. Assassination Classroom, for instance, has the shape of Koro-sensei's face, instead of just having the color take up the entire cover. Under his face there is an explanation of the meaning of his face, and on the backside there is a quote from Koro-sensei. Looking outside of Shonen Jump titles, there are also a lot of different types of illustrations under the dust jacket. For instance, Attack on Titan has an illustration that seemed to show some of the Titan history. Mirai Nikki has the character on the back of the book in front on a blue background. Volume 1 of Umaru shows the apartment she and her brother lives in. Nichijou has some random stuff, and The World God Only Knows has a variety of things, like sheepy manga panels or showing off locations. Lastly, I want to talk a bit about the price of manga in Japan compared to the English market. The retail price for English manga is about 10 to 11 USD. Of course, the actual price can be lower due to sales or manga being sold as part of a box set, but this is the standard price. Japanese manga has a much lower retail price, with the smaller volumes typically being about 400 yen plus a 10% sales tax, which is slightly more than 3 USD. The larger volumes typically seem to be about 500 yen plus 10% sales tax, which puts them at about 4 USD. I'm not sure if there typically are sales of retail manga in Japan, but there is at least one way to get manga really cheap there, which is to buy them used. In Japan, the used market is really big, with the used things often being in a good condition. This is also true for manga, which is widely available used through stores like Book Off. The used manga typically go for about 100 yen each volume, which is a bit less than 1 USD. At least that was the normal price when I was in Japan back in 2017. Now I've gone through the differences that I noticed and thought were relevant between the English and Japanese manga releases. If there are any other interesting differences that I didn't notice that you know of, you can tell me in the comments. If you liked the video, then, maybe give it a like, and if you absolutely hated it, you can give me a dislike.